Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, and I'm going to be talking about Debris Season 1, Episode 6. It's called Supernova. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. Premise of this one is about a group of seemingly teenagers who are kidnapping elderly people and possibly killing them. I say seemingly, of course, because the episode goes in a direction that reveals that they're not really teenagers, and I thought this was fairly predictable quite early on. As soon as they'd seen that an Asian man was missing, that an elderly Asian man was missing, and in the next scene we see a sort of young Asian guy as part of the teenage group. I immediately just jumped to, oh, these are all old people and they're getting young. And by the end, of course, the dead bodies that were found were just accidental, because there's this thing with the debris that it'll make the old people young again. It'll make them teenager aged. Teenaged is the word I'd use, I suppose. And there's a proximity thing, though, where once they're so far away from the device, from the debris, it completely has the opposite effect and just kills them. And they end up just turned into skeletons. And there's like a bit of an electromagnetic thing around their bodies and whatever, but that wasn't really a huge factor beyond just giving us something cool to see at the start of the episode to make us go, ooh, and and intriguing. But yeah, I mean, the plot is completely solid in terms of what it's doing. We have the sort of the main duo, the husband who found this debris, made his wife young again, and notably his wife was suffering from dementia in a care home. So for him, this was like getting his wife back. It's not just that he got to be young again, it's that he effectively cured her illness. And that's why, he's so determined to stay on the run with this. He believes that with each person he de-ages, that the proximity gets bigger. And the idea that he's hoping for is that if he can turn enough people, that eventually no one will have to worry about the proximity, that it'll just be enough because there's enough people who have been changed. But of course he's convinced otherwise by the end, and we have the sort of the heartfelt thing where he doesn't want her to die the way she was, so they just choose to both leave the proximity themselves and sacrifice themselves rather than going back to being old. And a couple of the other characters, the elderly man from the bench that we see kind of inducted, he seems fine with going back to being old, but his time being young again convinces him once again to relish life and to fight for every day he's got left and enjoy it to the fullest, and so on and so on. So there's your sort of upbeat kind of element. As far as the standalone plots go, this might be the least exciting one, and it's not because there's anything wrong with it. Part of it is because the character plot that's going on between Finola and Brian is kind of at a more critical juncture, so we're kind of paying more attention to that in the episode. But on top of that, I also think this plot is the most normal, bizarrely. This feels like a plot that I've definitely seen in other sort of supernatural sci-fi style shows. I couldn't tell you exactly, but it feels exactly like the plot that could be an episode of Fringe or X-Files, or hell, even something like Smallville, I think, had a episode with this kind of idea. Maybe Buffy even had one, the idea of like young people or old people becoming young, and vice versa. That stuff, we've seen that before. I think a lot of those early episodes, I say those early, we're only on episode 6, but those first 4 episodes of this show, for the most part, gave us some really interesting, like, what felt like new concepts to see on TV, at least with the visuals that were given them to us, actually changing the atmosphere in one episode, and this window into another dimension, and all these things. They felt a bit more distinct. This is perfectly fine. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this. And sort of like seeing the pieces come together, admittedly, because I kind of just latched on to, oh, these are all the old people from the start, and they were trying to hide it by not having them say specific things. But when they tackle the one kid and they say, where's this old man? And he goes, I am that old man. It was one of those sort of end of TV act cliffhangers for the ad break that just fell a little bit flat, because I'd already, I was there like 15 minutes ago, maybe more than that. So perfectly fine though, nothing wrong with it. the character stuff was obviously the more central thing to this episode, and there's little jabs and stuff going back. There's a great moment where after Brian has confessed that he knows about her father, where we see there's a mysterious little moment with him where he's injecting himself with something. So there's a mystery with him and why he's doing that. He comments that he's doing it sooner than he's expecting, but for some reason he has to. But there's a comment from Finola, or it's not even a comment actually. I mean, it's a noise. She makes a noise where they're talking about the case, and it's something about someone coming back, and she just sort of goes, "Huh." And there's this awkward moment between them because now it's on the table that they both knew about her father coming back and what that possibly means. So anytime something in the rest of the plot kind of makes them think about it, there's a shared look or there'll be a reaction moment or something like that. And I thought that played kind of nicely. I will say I very much do like that Brian chose to tell her. We see kind of him prodded towards that throughout the start of the episode. He's intentionally asking questions about her father, and Finola has also been told by her boss to plant information that's not true because she wants to lead Maddox to something. I was actually thinking, like, because she specifically told Finola to mention certain locations that her father's been to, and then Maddox, in like a scene or two later, asked Brian to ask about the same location. I actually thought, are they in cahoots? Is this some sort of weird like test from both sides where they want to play them against each other until they find trust or something? Like, I don't think it is, but for a split second, because they were so specifically in sync in what they were sort of like making each other ask about, that I kind of had that moment of like, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if there is some sort of weird connection here. I'm also pretty convinced that at least one of the bosses is going to turn out to be evil. And I'm actually thinking it's more likely going to be MI6 lady now. Just because so far we're not teasing too much of her being evil, but we're going so hard in on what Maddox is up to with the Russians and getting this debris, which is advanced in this episode, and what he's going to use that for. It seems to make things float. I still think that's going to do with his son, and you know that's all fine. And he's trying to trace the phone of the what was his name, Ash, that they captured. They try to interrogate him, doesn't go so well. He talks about, you know, he knows what side he's on, good or evil. Maddox doesn't. Maddox isn't aware. This debris is here to free us all, not contain us, and all that yabber jabber. But yeah, so I'm definitely thinking someone's going to turn out to be the more villainous entity in the show. And I guess my money's on MI6 lady and whoever she's really. I mean, I know she's working for MI6, but I mean, if she is evil, like, is she secretly working for someone else? Is MI6 just entirely evil? I don't know. But to get back to Brian Finola, because that's the core thing here, is I like that he does confess up, and it's motivated by a couple of things. It's motivated by the plot they encounter, but it's also motivated by a, to him, fairly random occurrence early in the episode where he's phoned by some other CIA operatives who are in England, and they're looking in Finola's apartment. They've broken in, and they're going through her computer, or they're trying to at least, and they're looking through her belongings. And when Brian hears this, there's a, you know, like, he's felt uneasy about lying to her. He's wanted to be able to have some sort of coexisting trust with her throughout this partnership, and obviously he's been very conflicted since he's had to lie to her. But hearing that her apartment's been broken into, that he's been asked, like, do you maybe know anything that could be a password? Do you know this? And he does confess this at the very end of the episode, when Finola, who at first admits that she knows about her father, they have a bit of a debate about that, but when he asks to know if, you know, can she be trusted about that he's told her something he's not supposed to have, she just kind of leaves naturally upset about the turn of events. By the end of the episode, after everything they go through with the main plot, and speaking to the character who's got a newly sudden life and wants to fight for every day they've got left, she talks up to him about how, yes, you can trust me, and they start to open up about, okay, so I was been told to, like, plant these seeds. They kind of acknowledge that they're both been led down a path, and they both acknowledge that maybe neither of them can trust their bosses. Well, Finola suggests that Brian is not super open to that as of yet. He says Maddox saved his life, and he gets, it's the first time he gets very defensive in this sort of line of conversation. This episode is the suggestion that Maddox should not be trusted, and this is intercutting with Maddox working with the Russians to get this debris, which I do still suspect is more of a personal thing than a thing. But at the same time, Finola's saying, "Hey, we've heard rumors from sources that he's up to something, that he's doing stuff," and that kind of plays as our sort of like ambiguous ending, where he's we end on Maddox sort of being all ominous and walking out of the hotel with at least part of the debris, not all of it. The woman was only there to show part of it, so there's still more for him to get. So the trade's not complete as of yet, but there is still stuff going on there. Yeah, I think these character beats are being handled fairly well. They're not blowing out the park by any means. There's nothing super special about the way this is unfolding, but I do think it's avoiding some of the pitfalls that I could see happening on a lot of network TV. Brian making the choice because he can't live with doing this, and it is motivated by a couple of key things that happen in the episode, so he doesn't just do it randomly. She asks him a question because it's right after he's like prodding for more information about where her father might have been before he died. It is very specific. He's making this little speech about, oh, your father's an inspiration, he's this genius, and he deserves to be respected, and it all feels a bit phony. And he knows it's a bit phony, because it is phony. So, the point where he does it, the point where he actually just admits, when she says, hey, why are you asking about my father? And he just says, because he's still alive. Everything in the episode justifies why in that moment he makes that choice. That is there. The fundamentals are there, and that is something that a lot of TV shows don't get. So, credit there. I mean, the episode as a whole is like a solid 7. It's not a super memorable one, I don't think. I think it advances the ongoing stuff in a solid way. I think the main plot is fine. It fits into the themes of what we've been doing this show with the human connections and the heart and the will to live and all that stuff, and mixes that with debris. The debris itself in this looked kind of like a gun, but I don't know if that's just because it happened to just have 2 sticky outy bits that look kind of like a machine gun, or if it was just because if it was actually some kind of weapon, or is it just like a random part of the corner of a ship, a corner of a room. I don't know, but I didn't notice it looked kind of weapon-like. Because when they take the old man into the forest and like, hey, then they pull it out the bag, I was thinking, hey, should he be? Is he not worried that this looks like a gun? But it's not. Here, hold it. Just hold it. Hold it. And actually, on that, I should mention the effect. I thought the effect of him de-aging was, for TV levels, I thought pretty good. They were obviously smart enough not to linger on it too long, and of course it cut away before the final part of the transformation to transition fully to the young actor. But I thought the start of the transformation, where they kept it on screen for a little bit, I thought it looked okay. I mean, it looks like an effect, don't get me wrong, but I was like, oh hey, like this is not laughably bad. I'm not mocking this. I'm not feeling like I'm looking at something stupid. It was working with the music to create a moment and get my imagination, firing. So that's cool. So yeah, a solid episode. If not one of its more memorable early ones. I think it's probably done a lot of important things for stuff building forward, which obviously we can't deny. And I'm kind of excited about Finola and Brian now both kind of like being honest with each other and letting each other know what they're maybe being told or what they're being asked of from their superiors, and maybe when they start to notice things that aren't quite right or inconsistencies, or yeah. So I mean, having them being on the same page, even if it is a little bit strained still, because Brian's not ready to accept that Maddox is up to no good or is doing something that should be questioned. So no, but no, it's a good episode. Not a great one though. I think it is probably in the lower end of the ones we've had. I think that episodes 2 through 4, for me are still kind of my favorite kind of chunk of the show so far. But not to be dissuaded, because I think a lot of what it's building is cool stuff. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to episode 7. Let me know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Please do like and subscribe. It is the easiest and free way to support everything we do, just by hitting the like button. It lets YouTube know that it's worth recommending out to people, and it'll do so. So please do. You can support us financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month. But otherwise, that is me. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?